Welcome to the Alberta Legislature for Tuesday, May 8th, 1990. I'm David Carter, Speaker of the Assembly and member for Calgary-Egmont. Today in our visitors, we have a special guest, one of the former provincial treasurers of the province, Mr. Hinman, who now resides down in Raymond. He was treasurer during the Manning government years. In question period today, no doubt there will be questions with regard to the illegal strike. After question period, some of the House tidy-up material will be dealt with in terms of motions for returns and written questions. And then with it being Private Members' Day in the afternoon, we will have a motion first discussed as proposed by the member for Calgary-Buffalo dealing with freedom of information. And if there is time later in the afternoon, the member for Ponoka-Rimbey will sponsor motion 209 dealing with education programs in the province. The House will not be sitting this evening, and budget estimates should be completed within 2 days. Let us pray. Our Father, we thank you for your abundant blessings to our province and ourselves. We ask you to ensure to us your guidance and the will to follow it. Amen.
Introduction of visitors.
Mr. Speaker, it's my privilege to introduce Mr. Edgar Hinman, a former member of this Legislative Assembly who formerly represented the constituency of Cardston. Mr. Hinman was first elected in 1952 and served in the Social Credit Government for 4 terms. During that time, he served as Minister of Municipal Affairs and later as Provincial Treasurer. He's accompanied by Merlin Litchfield, and they are seated in your gallery, and we ask that they stand and receive the warm welcome of this assembly.
I believe it's in the next series, Honourable Member. Thank you. No, thanks.
Presenting petitions. Reading and receiving petitions. Presenting reports by standing and special committees. Notices of motions. Introduction of bills.
Solicitor General.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I request leave to introduce Bill number 28, the Victims Programs Assistance Act. This being a money bill, Her Honor, the Honorable the Lieutenant Governor, having been informed of the contents of this bill, recommends the same to the Assembly. Mr. Speaker, this bill addresses the use of fine surcharges levied against those convicted in Alberta of federal offenses under the Criminal Code of Canada, the Narcotic Control Act, and the Food and Drugs Act. Surcharge funds are intended for use in programs aimed at assisting victims of crimes. The introduction of the surcharge against federal offenses is in response to a growing public sentiment that victims have been ignored by the criminal justice system while offenders have been the focal point. The bill sets out a process by which surcharge funds would be collected, pooled, and administered in Alberta. It includes the establishment of a Victims Programs Assistance Committee appointed by the Solicitor General to determine how the funds may best assist victims of crime. Thank you.
The Honourable Solicitor General has moved first reading of Bill 28, Victims Programs Assistance Act. Those members in favor of first reading, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. So ordered.
Bill number 28, Victims Programs Assistance Act, introduced by the Honourable Mr. Fowler, is now read a first time.
Highlands.
Speaker, I beg leave to introduce Bill 229, an act to amend the Students' Finance Act The purpose of this bill is to democratize the Students' Finance Board by allowing members nominated by the Council of Alberta University Students and Alberta College and Technical Institute Student Executive Council to be members of the Students' Finance Board for Alberta.
The honourable member for Edmonton Highlands has moved first reading of Bill 229, an act to amend the Students' Finance Act. Those in favour of first reading, please say aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried.
Bill number 229, an act to amend the Students' Finance Act, introduced by the honourable member, Ms. Barrett, is now read a first time. Tabling returns and reports.
Minister of Forestry, Lands and Wildlife, followed the Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to table response to question number 224 and question 261 as accepted by the government on Tuesday, April 3rd, 1990 and May 3rd, 1990, respectively.
Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to table with the Assembly response to motion for return number 241.
Associate Minister of Agriculture, followed by the member for Edmonton Glengarry.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased today to table with the Assembly copies of the Farming for the Future Progress Report for the year ending March 31, 1989.
Edmonton Glengarry.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to table two documents. The first is a document entitled Workload Standards Management Project, Initial Child Protection Standards, prepared by M. Jones, August 17, 1989. And the second document is the Child Welfare League of America 1989 Updated Standards.
Introduction of special guests.
Member for Calgary, Milliken.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm very pleased and really delighted today to introduce to you and through you to the members of the legislature 3 members of the Calgary Chinese Cultural Center Association. They're from Calgary, and Calgary, of course, as you know, has the most vibrant Chinese community in Canada. And these 3 hardworking volunteers are trying to build the best Chinese cultural center in Canada. And we have with us the president, Victor Ma, which I'd ask them to stand as I introduce them, and 2 members of the executive, 2 very hard-working members, Dan Ying and Malcolm Chow, and I'd ask the members of the legislature to give them, they're sitting in the Speaker's Gallery, a warm welcome to the legislature.
It's my pleasure and my privilege to introduce to you and to the Assembly 52 students from the Charlie Killam School in Camrose. They're seated in the members' gallery, and they're escorted today by 3 teachers, Mr. Errol Moan, Mr. Bob Wall, and Mr. Art Fathom. I'd ask that they all stand and receive the warm welcome of the Assembly.
Edmonton Highlands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's my pleasure to introduce through you to members of the Assembly today, members of Local 6 of the Alberta Union of Provincial Employees. They're social workers in the galleries. I'd ask all members to join us in welcoming them.
Solicitor General.
Mr. Speaker, it's my pleasure to introduce to you and through you to the Assembly 37 visitors from Margaret de Youville School, French language school in St. Albert. In that group are 17 students from the province of Quebec as well. They are accompanied by Mr. Ron Pashko, Mr. Michel Knoll, and Mademoiselle Lisa Rose. I would ask them to rise and accept the customary acknowledgement of the House.
Honourable members, I think you all will join with me in celebrating the 4th anniversary of those members who were elected 4 years ago for the first time.
Ministerial statements. Oral question period.
Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, Yesterday I asked the Minister of Labor to answer a pretty straightforward question about the United Nations International Labor Organization's criticism of this government's legislation for public employees. I'm sure the minister will recall, say it was only yesterday, how she danced around yesterday. I thought it was at Arthur Murray's studio, Mr. Speaker, and refused to admit that the ILO said that the legislation needed to be amended. Now, Mr. Speaker, the question was plain and simple, and the point was that nobody except the government thinks this legislation is fair. Even Mr. Justice Cook said these laws were a blunt instrument, Mr. Speaker. Right. Now, Mr. Speaker, I don't want another tap dance for the minister. I want this minister to answer this very straightforward question. Will the minister now undertake the ILO committee's request that the government, and I quote, that the government re-examine the provisions in question in order to confine the ban on strikes to services which are essential in the strictest sense of the term, unquote.
Good idea. Good idea.
Mr. Speaker, as I recall, the judge said that an injunction is a blunt instrument, and I think I tend to agree with him on that. It is not a course of action that any government wishes to take at any time. But when you have two parties at the table, management and social workers in this case, employees, there is always a third party at the table, Mr. Speaker, and that third party is the public. And we have, in this House and in this government, an overriding responsibility to the public. We must be concerned about their well-being, and we must be concerned about their safety, particularly for those most vulnerable members of our society who have nowhere else to go for the help they need. And in fact, I believe the judge did agree with us on the public safety issue, and that is the reason that the injunction was granted.
Well, I know I can't comment on the answers, Mr. Speaker, but Mr. Speaker, it's interesting that they're so worried about the vulnerable people in society.
Yeah.
I remember this government cutting the rates they were so concerned about them, Mr. Speaker.
Right.
Now,
That's
Mr.
right.
Speaker, first of all, the nurses went on strike. The government introduced Bill 44. There were labor problems in the construction industry. The government introduced Bill 110.
Shame.
In response to labor activity in 1986, the government sent Speedy Reedy and the jet setters around the world, Mr. Speaker, and we got Bills 21 and 22,
Shame.
the most draconian labor laws in Canada, Mr. Speaker.
That's right.
And I want to ask this minister, when will the minister realize that the right to free collective bargaining is a fundamental principle, Mr. Speaker, and legislating it won't stop it from happening, Mr. Speaker. All it does is make criminals out of valued employees.
Hear, hear.
Mr. Speaker, when one is participating in a political debate, it's always a pleasure to be able to agree with the leader of the opposition on at least one point, and that one point is these are valued employees. On that, I wholeheartedly endorse the leader's comments. But at the same time, we have always to balance the larger public interest against those interests of the workers in this case. And I return to this point. How do you measure whether legislation is working or not working? Why don't you look to see whether the pay and caseloads are fair in comparison to the other provinces? And remember that we have not got another group to measure against because we employ virtually all the social workers in Alberta. So we have to look beyond our borders. BC, Saskatchewan, they have a different process. I agree they have a different process. They have the right to strike in BC and Saskatchewan for their civil servants. Fair enough. Have their civil servants got an extraordinarily high rate of pay, salary, and benefits? Do their civil servants in social work have an extraordinarily low caseload? No. Mr. Speaker, the answer to those questions is as follows. They have roughly the same pay and benefits, and they have roughly the same caseload as we do in Alberta. If that isn't a measure of fairness, Mr. Speaker, I do not know what is. Stick around.
As usual, the minister misses the point totally, and if her figures are as good as the other ministers, Mr. Speaker, I wouldn't even trust him, to tell you the truth, Mr. Speaker. Now, Mr. Speaker, Chief Justice Brian Dixon of the Supreme Court of Canada has come out against this particular act. He said, and I quote, "The prohibition of the right to strike of all hospital workers and public service employees was too drastic a measure for achieving the object of protecting essential services." He also said, "The arbitration system provided by the acts was not an adequate replacement for the employees' freedom to strike." Mr. Speaker, my question to this minister, why isn't the condemnation of the ILO, the Chief Justice of Canada, Alberta nurses, and now Alberta social workers enough to convince this minister that these unfair labor laws have to go?
Let's look at the nurses' situation. Is the question that collective bargaining does not work or does work?
It does.
The nurses, oh, how many thousand of them are there? Thousands and thousands of nurses in this province just successfully concluded with the Alberta Hospitals Association a collective agreement under the existing legislation. Now, does that or does that not prove that the law works? I would say, Mr. Speaker, that collective bargaining works if they give it a chance. They've walked away from the table. We had a proposal on, they put a counter proposal, we said, good, now's the time to talk details. They opened the door and walked out. We offered mediation. They walked away. Now, is there or is there not a will to come and negotiate the terms of this agreement? We are saying now we're ready. As soon as they're back to work, if they can be back to work tomorrow morning, we'll be at the table tomorrow morning. And we are willing and eager and ready. We put out an official call to the union. We've said to the president of that union, please help get those social workers back, because the only place this will be resolved is at the table. We're prepared to put all the time aside that is necessary. We will do the deal at the table where it belongs.
Leader of the Opposition, second.
The point is there isn't free collective bargaining, Minister.
Right.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to designate my second question to the member from Edmonton Calder.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Throughout the course of the strike by the province's social workers, the Minister of Family and Social Services has done his best to deny that there's a problem with caseloads. Yesterday, he insisted that the average income security caseload in Alberta was 90 cases per worker. This is vastly different, Mr. Speaker, from what social workers are saying. As a matter of fact, yesterday, a social worker called me after hearing the minister throwing around numbers in question period yesterday. She said that in her office there are 6 workers responsible for more than 1,900 income security clients. And let me spell it out to the minister. That's more than 300 cases each. To the Minister of Family and Social Services, does this minister stand by his numbers, which he quoted yesterday, or will he admit that he knows that his numbers are totally inaccurate?
Totally inaccurate.
Wrong again, Mr. Speaker. The minister stands by his numbers, and I would want to even point out to the member that the Deputy Minister of this department has sworn out an affidavit that has been filed with the courthouse to attest to those particular numbers. And again, I'd want to correct the member on her preamble. She began by pointing out that this minister has not acknowledged that there's a caseload problem. We all along have said that in some offices, yes, caseloads are imbalanced and are higher than we'd like to see. We have all along said that we are going to continue to take corrective action, to continue to build upon the initiatives and the steps that we have already taken this past year. And again, I would want to point out the numbers that I stated yesterday in the House, because you misquoted me on those as well. In income security, I said a province-wide average of 187. A province-wide average of 187. And when I compare that to other provinces, I look at British Columbia, where it's 210. I look at Ontario, where it's 285. But again, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that we recognize that there are inequities across the province. We recognize that there are some regional discrepancies. We've addressed them in some areas. We're going to continue to address them. And we want to do it, Mr. Speaker, in a spirit of cooperation. We want to involve social workers. We want them to be a part of the solution. We're prepared to work with them. And, Mr. Speaker, I'm confident that once they return to work tomorrow, they'll be prepared to work with us as well.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, I know what the minister said because it was answered, Mr. Speaker. But then, and there are other things that the minister said yesterday that had social workers shaking their heads. The minister stated yesterday that the Child Welfare League of America, and I quote, recommends a caseload of between 25 and 35. But, Mr. Speaker, in fact, they do not. Given that the League actually recommends between 12 and 17 cases per worker, can the minister explain why the numbers that he gave in the House yesterday and the actual League standards are so totally different?
Oh. Mr. Speaker,
Get started.
Mr. Speaker, they ask questions, but they don't listen to answers.
Thank you. I think the point is made. Please continue, Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the member for Edmonton-Calder is going to be preempting the Liberal leader, I'm sure, with her question, and perhaps she's spending too much time reading their news clippings. Again, the member is selecting specific types of child welfare cases. And we're not talking about just specific types. We're talking about a blend of all the types of cases that individuals have to respond to. And again, Mr. Speaker, consultation with the Child Welfare League suggests that those numbers are not out of line.
The Dick Johnson School
Final
Council.
Final supplementary, Mr. Speaker, to the minister. Well, as a minister, I think we could at least expect him to get his facts straight.
Hear, hear.
And I would ask this minister, how can he expect to have any credibility with social workers or with any Albertans for that matter when he deliberately distorts his numbers to make himself look good?
That's right.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I realize that the member is dealing with pre-written questions, and she had her response written out before I gave my answer. But again, I can only say that those statistics are quoted from a sworn affidavit by a very senior member of this department, that he's obviously gone through the department very, very thoroughly to make sure that those numbers are appropriate and those numbers do reflect true situations. But again, I can only reiterate that obviously you can't take those numbers and those statistics and apply them to each and every office. We've said all along, Mr. Speaker, that there are some extraordinary situations. There are caseloads that are higher than we'd like them to be in some specific offices, and we have addressed it in a very substantive way, that we've made considerable progress, that we want to continue to be able to make progress, that we want to continue to be able to implement changes, and we want to do it again, Mr. Speaker, in cooperation with social workers and Albertans. We've done it in the past, and we'll do it again in the future.
Member for Edmonton-Glengarry.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Honourable Minister implied that social workers and their caseloads were not unduly severe insofar as Alberta was concerned compared with other jurisdictions. To add credibility to his argument, he quoted from the Child Welfare League of America, saying that in the area of child welfare, Alberta was within those league standards. I have tabled today the League's most recent and updated standards. They set out standards that are substantially lower than the minister quoted yesterday. I have also tabled a report dated August 1989, which is an internal report of the Ministry of Social Services, wherein recommendations as to caseload are set out. That report falls clearly on the side of the social workers. My first question to the minister is this. Given that the League statistics, the League standards, document that I've tabled today, show and suggest caseload standards substantially less than the minister quoted yesterday in the area of child welfare, how can the minister make those improper and inaccurate statements and then hide behind some deputy minister's affidavit? Read the document, Mr. Minister. Explain it to us.
But my goodness gracious, a few dozen times, it's the same question. It's repetitious. There has to be some creativity in this place. Minister, very briefly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I realize what a difficult time the Liberal leader is having of adjusting to the Legislative Assembly, and I know that his questions are pre-written and he can't
make those adjustments. But I have answered that question, but I want to reiterate again that the reference point that the leader is referring to is in response to specific types of cases, as opposed to an average amount of all types of cases that child care workers are required to deal with. And there's clearly a difference between the two, Mr. Speaker. He's having a difficult time understanding it. Perhaps I can spend a little more time with him and coach him along and help him along.
Let's go on with the supplementary, somehow more creative.
Here I have also tabled today an internal report dated August of 1989. That report examines the standards in British Columbia and in Saskatchewan, and it looks at the Child Welfare League standards. And it says, all of that considered, Alberta has standards that are too difficult for social workers to meet. I'd like to know, Mr. Minister, Mr. Speaker, why no action has been taken by the Minister on this internal report that suggests capping on caseloads? Why no action since August?
Mr. Speaker, again, the member is ill-informed, and I had to muse, in fact, when I looked at their news release, and they referred to a buried government caseload study. Well, Mr. Speaker, it wasn't buried. We're talking about a study that was commissioned by this government. We're talking about a study that involved 111 frontline caseworkers. We're talking about a study that was provided. The results were provided to in excess of 100 frontline caseworkers because we wanted, Mr. Speaker, their input. We wanted their feedback on the direction in there, and we wanted to get on with the implementation. I said, Mr. Speaker, last week in this Assembly that we were very close to establishing a caseload model as it relates to child welfare. I want to refer to the report that the member has been so kind to table. And if you look at page 1, under the second paragraph in the introduction, it points out, since the consultees will be directly affected by whatever standards are eventually determined, a degree of bias must be acknowledged. Despite this, the literature indicates that line staff estimates of workload demands are fairly accurate. Field testing is required prior to the integration of these measures as standards with a departmental workload management system. I indicated a week ago that we're looking at piloting caseload models in a number of our offices in this province. Exactly what the report is calling upon us to do. Mr. Speaker, again, this report is part of our action. It's part of our commitment to reducing caseload standards. Mr. Speaker, we are committed to reducing the caseload size. I indicate, again, I refer to a document brought forward by the member from Edmonton Avonmore. Again,
Mr. Perhaps you might wait for a question from Edmonton Avonmore. Final, Edmonton Glengarry.
Mr. Speaker, I think I can now see why we have a strike. The minister is getting bum information, bad information from his own departmental officials. And he can't even quote statistics that are correct. Now, Mr. Speaker, a report has been tabled. There are recommendations in that report. It's been sitting with the minister since August of 1989. Will the minister agree and commit to putting those recommendations into effect insofar as child welfare is concerned so that we can end this strike now?
The Liberal leader doesn't have a grasp of the situation. Obviously, I would assume that he hasn't taken the time to read the full report yet, or he'd recognize just exactly how complex it is and how many issues still aren't identified and resolved within this report. But, Mr. Speaker, again, this report is a major initiative of this government. This report is taking us towards a course of appropriate action. Again, I've talked about the implementation of these recommendations. I've talked about the piloting that we're going to do. I've talked about the social reform that I'm bringing forward in this province, and this again will be a part of it. Mr. Speaker, this one big step in the right direction is a very unique step. There's only one other province that's really trying to grasp and take hold of some meaningful resolutions to this situation. Only one other province that's even doing it, and that's Manitoba. We are We are leaders, Mr. Speaker, as it relates to child welfare. We're going to continue to lead the way. We're going to continue to work as we have in this report with frontline caseworkers to make sure that the initiatives and the steps that we are taking are appropriate. And Mr. Speaker, we are going to solve these challenges working in cooperation with Albertans and social workers.
Calgary Fish Creek.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday, Court of Queen's Bench Justice Alan Cook ordered illegally striking social workers back to work because it was clear to him, and I suspect to others, that the safety of Albertans who rely on our services was indeed at serious risk. But, Mr. Speaker, while getting social workers back on the job will end the threat to public safety, it obviously doesn't resolve the outstanding concerns that social workers have, and reference has been frequently made to those concerns by others. Obviously, Mr. Speaker, it's important that negotiators for government on the one hand and social workers on the other get back to the bargaining table as soon as possible. Will the minister responsible for the public service elaborate on her earlier response today and tell us what specific steps are being taken to ensure that bargaining does indeed get underway again?
Mr. Speaker, the member is quite correct. The injunction order was signed this morning by the Queen's Bench judge, and it was filed and served on the Alberta Union of Public Employees and on its lawyers, and is now in effect. And that means, of course, that social workers must go back to work, and we hope and expect that they will, fully well knowing that they are caring and responsible professionals, and we know that they do legitimately care about their clients who are, of course, at risk. But that takes care of the safety issue. There is no question that where the dispute will be settled is at the table, with two parties sitting down and taking as long as necessary to come to a negotiated settlement. We are ready. We are saying as soon as they're back to work, then we're back at the table, and we are hoping and urging the union to have their negotiating team back at the table at the same time. We have officially contacted the union and asked them to come back just as soon as they're back to work, because we want to start the next round of negotiations as quickly as possible, and we want to keep them going just as long as it is necessary to come to a negotiated settlement.
Mr. Speaker, the social workers aren't the only government workers seeking a new contract. There are, of course, 12 AUP subsidiaries, and until yesterday at least, bargaining in these subsidiaries had been unilaterally suspended by AUP. Could the minister tell us what bargaining activity, if any, is taking place with our other government employees?
Mr. Speaker, yesterday Pat Walknitz, the president of AUP, sent us a letter saying that she had lifted the unilateral suspension that she had put on all the other negotiations, and suggesting that we recommence negotiations in Subsidiary 3 and Subsidiary 10. And we wrote back immediately, within hours, before lunchtime, as I recall, and said, yes, we welcome her offer to recommence bargaining on those two subsidiaries. And in fact, we suggested that there were two other subsidiaries who could immediately go back to bargaining, and those were 1 and 4. I'm pleased to report that subsidiaries 3 and 8 were bargaining this morning, and 4 and 1 were to commence bargaining at 2 o'clock this afternoon, and to my knowledge, standing here, they are in fact continuing those negotiations. In addition, Mr. Speaker, we suggested to the union that our negotiating team and their negotiating team get together and schedule bargaining sessions for the other 7 subsidiaries that are still outstanding, and that was accepted by Mrs. Walknitz, and we would expect to have dates and places set for those any day now. I should mention also that the master agreement, which applies to all of the civil servants right across the board on the general terms and conditions of their employment, were settled a couple of weeks ago, and so that large general matter has reached a conclusion. So overall, Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to report that the negotiations are ongoing, And certainly from our point of view, the faster we can get to the table on all 12 subsidiaries, the faster we can come to an agreement that is fair to everybody, and that is the result that we are eagerly anticipating.
Tourism has put out a tender for the lease of a steam engine by the Rocky Mountain Rail Society. Engine 6060 has been labor of love for volunteers for many years. They put in hard work and some $600,000. While the tender has not been yet, Mr. Speaker, I can surely bet that the Vista Rail Service of the BC will get the award because they are represented by a former minister of this government, Mr. John Zazerny. To the Minister of Tourism, when it comes to decide which group will lease this engine, will the minister accommodate
the right one?
Will the minister accommodate and recognize the volunteer efforts of Albertans, or will the friends of the government have the inside track?
Here, here. Yeah, come on.
Mr. Speaker, we commend the volunteers in this province for all the work they have done in the past, and undoubtedly steam train tourism is growing with excitement across the province. There are several groups that are quite interested in putting in a steam train facility, and there's quite a bit of work being done trying to get those groups together to set up an economically viable operation that can run on its own merits without us as government facilitating it on an ad hoc basis. And the department has sent out letters asking different groups to show that are showing some idea that they want to participate, and I'm sure that the volunteer services that have been put in the past by groups will be recognized. It's not going to be easy. It's a big operation, and unless they set up a corporation and prove their management ability that is acceptable to CN and CP, they will have a problem getting running rights on any track unless it's their own track.
Mr. Speaker, I believe the minister is fudging just a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's right.
This government has tourist dollars to spend on chess tournaments that never see the light of day. It has money for water slides in West Edmonton Mall, the Stetson Land Company. Is this why the department doesn't have any money to assist volunteer groups in running trains throughout the province of Alberta?
I would, very, very interesting rundown. I know the government of Alberta has quite an investment in 6060, and it is the ownership of the engine basically is the province of Alberta. I don't know of the projects that you're talking about or the proponents behind them, but I know that the department has put out a request to seek proposals from various groups to see what interest they have with a good, viable plan to operate, because there is been requests coming in to us to designate the engine to their train, and it'll be interesting to see those proposals as they come forward.
Edmonton White Mud, followed by Smoky River.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, last week I raised questions regarding the allocations of Community Facilities Enhancement Program funding in Tory ridings. At that time, I filed a reference to the member representing Lesser Smoky Lake, and the Premier indicated that the minister responsible would respond. Mr. Speaker, I have additional information, and I'll file copies of this particular clipping. But just let me quote. Fort McLeod has been allocated a $220,000 share of the program, which Council feels is administered on a first-come, first-served basis until the funds are expended, in reference to the CFEP. The minister, the minister representing the riding, reviews applications from his constituency prior to approving them for final approval to the Honourable minister responsible. And furthermore, Mr. Speaker, roughly $62,000 remains and must be used or lost by year's end according to council. And that's the information that was provided to them directly by the member of the riding. The question, Mr. Speaker, the question to the minister responsible for lotteries: does the minister allocate specific dollars to Tory ridings, or why does he allocate specific dollars to Tory ridings when in the past he has claimed the program is based on need? The question is, why is he doing this?
Well, Mr. Speaker, at the outset, I'm unaware of any member of this Legislative Assembly that represents the constituency of Lesser Smoky Lake. Second point, Mr. Speaker, if the honourable member would like to see the latest update with respect to Community Facility Enhancement Program applications and approvals, a news release was issued May 7, 1990. That's yesterday, Mr. Speaker, and it lists some 58 new Community Facility Enhancement Program grants announced in the month of April of 1990, and the honourable member, as can anyone else, Mr. Speaker, go through the list and verify. Thirdly, Mr. Speaker, the pamphlet that was issued when the Premier of the province of Alberta announced the Community Facility Enhancement Program on October 17, 1988, the application process contains the following. Application forms are available through the office of the Minister responsible for lotteries or your MLA. And I can only strike me, Mr. Speaker, that MLAs on the government side, I know MLAs certainly on the official opposition side, have obviously taken the time to read the pamphlet, because a fair number of MLAs, Mr. Speaker, and representing the government side and certainly representing the official opposition side, have consulted with me and discussed the community facility enhancement applications with me, and it's remarkable to me on this particular day in May of 1990 that the member from Edmund Whitemud still has not taken the time to read this document, which is nearly 2 years old.
Mr. Speaker, my question wasn't answered. The minister responsible for lotteries is probably, his area is probably the most difficult to get information from, including the agencies he represents. As simple a thing as getting the bylaws of the Wild Rose Foundation. But in any case, Mr. Speaker, and to the member from Lesser Slave Lake, my apologies. Mr. Speaker, to the minister responsible for lotteries, will the minister file within this House a listing of the allocations for all ridings, including opposition ridings?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I don't know where Mr. Speaker, I don't know where the honourable gentleman is, but on the one-year anniversary of the Community Facility Enhancement Program, I made public, heck, we held a press conference in the press room here of the Legislative Assembly and issued a document which contained a specific listing of every expenditure under the Community Facility Enhancement Program. Not just a couple of minutes ago, Mr. Speaker, I pointed out to the honourable member that on a monthly basis we issue a news release, and there's one dated May 7, 1990, which covers all of the approvals. Mr. Speaker, the Community Facility Enhancement Program. Each time a Community Facility Enhancement Program application has been approved, it is made public, Mr. Speaker. There is a news release that's provided. In addition to that, there is a presentation plaque that is provided to the local beneficiary group. There is a letter that is provided to the local beneficiary group, signed by myself, Mr. Speaker. And, Mr. Speaker, we even put up a sign displaying the involvement of volunteers throughout Alberta in it. And there's some now 1,400 such groups and such announcements and such bits of information available. And, Mr. Speaker, it's remarkable to me that that there's more than we can do. Surely there's a responsibility on behalf of the member from Edmund Whitewood to take a few minutes off periodically and start doing some reading.
For Smoky River, followed by Edmonton Kingsway.
Mr. Speaker, last week allegations were made in the House that a company called McKay Seeds, who is supposedly partly owned by relation of a previous sitting member, had been given exclusive rights to the seed program at Alberta Terminal Canola Crushers Limited, and that there was some wrongdoing in the process. Would the minister indeed enlighten this House as to what the wrongdoing was and just what the process that actually took place?
Or if...
Mr. Speaker, and I would ask that the honourable member for Westlock Sturgeon pay attention, because I think this was a question he was really getting at when he was confusing Alberta Terminal Canola Crushers Limited with Alberta Terminals Limited. The fact remains, in checking with the board of directors of Alberta Terminal Canola Crushers Limited, that they conducted a public tender process to determine the firm that would source seed for the current crop year, and McKay Seeds won the public tender process.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's been alleged that McKay Seeds is being subsidized by the government with this program for interest-free money to purchase this seed, and that farmers that indeed McKay Seeds is the one that is being subsidized. I just wonder if the minister could clarify for this House and for the person who's brought forward these allegations, the basic spokesman for the Liberal Funny Farm.
Mr. Speaker, it's normal practice in the industry to provide interest-free funding for the provision of the seed. If there is any subsidy involved here, it certainly is not to the seed company. It would be, the benefit would be received by the farmer.
Edmonton Kingsway.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My first question is to the Treasurer. Last week, Albertans witnessed a spectacle of the provincial cabinet openly split over the sale of the Cormy Ranch to a Japanese consortium to build a $1 billion recreation complex. The Minister of Economic Development and Trade even had a draft release made up to announce the $6 million sale. Now, given that this government has too often been caught making economic decisions based on political expediency and personal friendships, will this Treasurer tell us what criteria and what process will this Cabinet put in place to determine the economic, social, and environmental viability of this project?
Get the wrong minister.
Mr. Speaker, the member will know that we dealt with this question last Tuesday when I was asked what was the government's position with respect to this piece of property. We said then that no decision had been made and that we had to balance both the concerns of the development side, the environmental side, with the whole question as whether or not dollars would flow to the contract holders. And of course there are several competing priorities here. But I remind the member, and I remind the other people who are prattling in the opposition across the way, that they should not depend upon press releases to reflect government decisions. And in fact, we have a way in which these announcements are made. The announcements are made, Mr. Speaker, through the normal process. The Cabinet comes to a decision, that amount of information will be provided. And in this case, when that decision is made, it will be made by the Order in Council route. And nothing really has changed since that point, Mr. Speaker. And I remind the members across the way that they should, in fact, pay attention to what we say here, not what they report to have seen somewhere else, Mr. Speaker.
Well, your record's not very good, Dick. Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Perhaps the Treasurer would admit that the only reason that the Cormy Ranch sale is even before the provincial cabinet is because it involves the sale of agricultural land to foreign investors. And given it that the Cormys could turn around, if they wanted to, tomorrow and sell this land to some Canadian without even asking cabinet approval, how can the Treasurer justify his statement of last week that there will be no sale of that property which puts one nickel in the hands of the Cormys family, unquote? How can he live up to that brag?
Well, Mr. Speaker, sometimes we have to take the time to explain the process to this member.
We have seen that what is obvious to most Albertans, what is obvious to most members of the Assembly, is painfully not obvious to this member, Mr. Speaker, and I'm afraid we have the case here again where he doesn't understand the way in which the process operates. Now, if he took the time to read the legislation under which the foreign land ownership legislation operates, he would in fact see that it requires approval of the government before land is transferred into foreign owns. So it's not a question, he doesn't have to read into the question, Mr. Speaker, any kind of slur or slant or any kind of pejorative statement which reflects on this government. In fact, we're careful to ensure that agricultural land is preserved because for us, the agricultural heritage, the agricultural future is a strong part of our economic future. So, Mr. Speaker, we do, I can point out, Mr. Speaker, that we do have other ways in which we can protect the contract holders. And, Mr. Speaker, I don't want to give a legal opinion, but I can assure you that we have good legal advice which will guide us as to how to protect those contract holders. We intend to do just that, Mr. Speaker, and we want to be assured that the contract holders' interests are protected if this transaction doesn't in fact take place. That's our objective, Mr. Speaker. There's a very clear reason for that to happen. I know Albertans understand it, and I know it just takes a little longer for this member from Edmonton Kingsway to get it through his head.
Member for Edmonton Millwoods, if there's time.
Mr. Speaker, the only way the government agencies can function effectively is when the leaders of those agencies enjoy public confidence and trust. And it's now clear that the scandal and controversy surrounding the chairman of the Alberta Multicultural Commission has totally compromised his ability to lead that agency. So I would like to ask the chairman of the commission, would he now be prepared to do the honorable thing, no longer tarnish the reputation of the commission along with his own, and resign his position as chairman?
No answer. No, Mr. Speaker.
Well, it's really regrettable that this government has no meaningful conflict of interest legislation, but before he totally compromises the reputation of the Commission, will he reflect one more time about this, stop doing further damage to the Commission and the government's relations with the multicultural community, and step down?
Mr. Speaker, the business of the Commission is going on as usual, and everything is running smooth in the Commission office, and there's no further comments.
Thank you. The answer of the chairman of the Multicultural Commission, which of course is responsibility in the Department of Culture and Multiculturalism, I can tell the Assembly that I have not had one phone call, one representation, one letter, one comment, one hint that in any way anyone has any difficulty with the excellent job the member from Redwater Andrew has been doing as chairman of the Multicultural Commission.
Calgary Northwest.
Mr. Speaker, I was pleased today to hear a couple of ministers comment on volunteerism, because my question today is to the Minister of Culture and Multiculturalism and deals with that very topic. And I'd like to read a quote from a letter that the minister wrote to the Friends of the Cochrane Ranch Society dated April 9, 1990. The sentence reads as follows: "Should your society continue to find itself unable to accept the Western Heritage Center project, and further to campaign against the location of the center on the ranch as is suggested in the March 13, 1990 correspondence, I would reluctantly find it necessary to terminate our master cooperating agreement." In light of this government sending the member of Red Deer North to Japan to talk about volunteerism and how this government values volunteers in this province, my question to the minister is this: is the minister now declaring to volunteer groups that government policy is that government holds the big club and you do it my way or it's the highway?
Mr. Speaker, I'm glad of the opportunity to stand and again express on behalf of the government, the people of Alberta, our deep appreciation of all the work that volunteers do right across the province. There are many volunteer groups, some of which have the support of government. For example, there'd be a volunteer group operating in Calgary Northwest working to get that member elected that I don't expect would find a great favor over here. That's not to say volunteerism is not a good thing. With respect to the volunteers at the Cochrane Ranch and the Friends of the Cochrane Ranch Society, there is an agreement under which the Friends Society operates in conjunction with the Department of Culture and Multiculturalism. And the objectives of the Friends are to support and enhance the activities of the department on that historic site. My correspondence with Mr. John Gray spells out that that is in fact the case. If he and his organization, and I have not any further correspondence from them, but if members of that organization, which is designed and set up to do that particular job, don't want to do that particular job, then I can see no reason why they would want to stay in that same organization.
Supplementary.
The members certainly do want to continue with their job, and so my question to the minister is, does this minister believe it's appropriate for a minister of this government to force compliance upon volunteer groups by threats and intimidation, as I just indicated?
Mr. Speaker, there are master cooperating agreements that this department has with many friends organizations, all of whom are volunteers. The agreements that we have with the various friends of the Cochrane Ranch, friends of the Ukrainian Cultural Heritage Village, friends of Dunvegan, friends of Victoria Settlement, and on and on and on, provide a framework within which these organizations accept the donations, manage the donations funds to enhance the operations of these various facilities. If the members of the organization are not interested in complying with those objectives of the organization, then there's no sense in continuing to work for that organization as a volunteer. Perhaps those who are interested in doing something other than that would want to set up a different volunteer organization and offer their volunteer services to that organization. But there is no sense, Mr. Speaker, in working in a cooperative arrangement with an organization designed to help and cooperate with you when they don't want to cooperate with you.
492. Point of order. Deputy Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in a point of order with respect to the comments made by the honourable member from Edmonton Millwoods in respect to the member from Redwater, Andrew. And I would cite the standing orders 23I, Beauchene 4097, and 411.5. And it would just clearly indicate, Mr. Speaker, that the honourable member from Edmonton Millwoods is clearly out of order with respect to his comments.
Member for Edmonton Millwoods.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to refer the Honourable Deputy Government House Leader to Beauchene Section 69. And it may be an awkward question for this government, and the member for Smoky Lake and other members may not like to, Redwater Andrew.
Lesser member from Smoky Lake.
Redwater Andrew. And they may not like to hear these kinds of comments, but I can tell you that people are talking to me. How can we have people as chairman of the Multicultural Commission who don't have confidence, don't have public confidence? When all the time the headlines are about the controversies surrounding their land deals.
You don't take those calls.
Mr. Chairman, I can appreciate their touchiness on the issue, but it's their own problem of their own making.
Politics. The honourable members, even before the point of order was raised, the chair has asked for delivery of the blues. The matter will be dealt with later in the afternoon, taking into account the references, whether they were relevant or irrelevant. The chair also needs to bring to the attention of the House the fact that the honourable member for Edmonton Calder was in breach of parliamentary language earlier in question period. The blues are here. The quote was made when he, the Minister of Family and Social Services, when he deliberately distorts his numbers to make himself look good. That's clearly unparliamentary language with respect to sections. Order, please. Order. Honourable members. Excuse me, honourable member. If the Leader of the Opposition is finished, perhaps I'll continue. Beauchene, 489. It's indeed listed there. Check through that, and it's also there with regard to 492. I wonder if the member for Edmonton Calder would be prepared to withdraw.
Misled. No, he
Okay,
didn't say
Mr. Speaker, I would withdraw that comment if it's unparliamentary.
With orders of the day, might we have unanimous consent to revert to the introduction of special guests?